My name is Gary Parker. I'm the chair of Future Communities, which is a non-profit making organisation based in Southeast London. And we've been running a programme related to women's health and well-being for women over the age of 40. Um, and I'm now going to shortly hand over to my colleague Elizabeth Turner to do the presentation. Um, the presentation will last 30 to 40 minutes approximately, and if you can ask questions afterwards, you can put them in the chat as well, and we'll take any other comments that you or observations you may have too. This will be recorded and it's going to go on our YouTube channel, so it'll probably be there in about 2 weeks' time or within 2 weeks. So you will be able to watch the recording, and a copy of the slides from this will be circulated after the event. So without further ado, I will hand over to my colleague Elizabeth Turner, who is a holistic health coach. Elizabeth will introduce herself now.
Thank you, Gary. So hello and good morning to everyone. My name is Elizabeth Turner and I am a health practitioner, and I'm currently working in partnership with the NHS, and I'm also a holistic health coach and a level 2 fitness instructor. My passion is supporting women's health and wellness with a focus around a holistic approach. And that includes focusing on the 5 pillars, which I fondly like to call stress, sleep, mind, nutrition, and exercise. Today, I am going to be presenting the importance of balancing our blood sugars to support our hormones. Um, I myself have been on a journey experiencing hormonal roller coaster since I was actually a teenager, and I'm now in my perimenopause and learning how powerful holistic health coaching is. And just for those of you who are not sure, an holistic health coach, we focus on symptom management and prevention. So any questions that are medical related, I will leave to the experts. I do have a network of GPs and hormonal specialists that I can refer you to. So I'm just going to share my screen with you. Can you see it now?
Yeah, that's it.
Yeah. Sorry about that, guys. So yeah, as I was saying, whether you're feeling tired, sorry. Whether you're feeling tired, dealing with mood swings, or experiencing any stubborn weight changes, or you just want to feel more balanced in your body, you are in the right place. So, blood sugar and hormones are deeply connected. When your blood sugar is out of balance, your hormones struggle to function properly. And that can lead to a roller coaster of symptoms, especially for women in perimenopause, menopause, or struggling with hormonal imbalances. But here is the good news. Balancing your blood sugars doesn't have to be restricted or even complicated. Start with implementing simple, sustainable lifestyle changes. You can regain energy, reduce your cravings, sleep better, and feel more like yourself again. So let's get balanced together. So throughout this presentation, I will be covering why blood sugar matters, what is blood sugar and blood sugar roller coaster, our key hormones affected by our blood sugars, the symptoms of blood sugar imbalance and the benefits of balancing our blood sugar, the fantastic 4 food groups to support blood sugar regulation. We'll be covering sleep, movement, stress, and hydration for blood sugar control, and recommend some supplements. So, why blood sugar balance matters? Well, there is a deep connection between our blood sugar levels and our hormones, and maintaining a healthy balance of blood sugar is crucial for hormone imbalances. So, stable blood sugar equals lower cortisol, and cortisol is our stress hormone. When your blood sugar drops too low, your body sees this as a stressor and releases cortisol to bring it back up. Now, frequent highs and lows can lead to chronic cortisol elevation, which then can disrupt our other hormones, so estrogen, our progesterone, and our thyroid hormones. It also supports insulin balance. So insulin is a hormone that helps move sugar from your blood into your cells. And if your blood sugar is constantly high, we're going to be producing more insulin. Our cells then become insulin resistant, and this can lead to hormonal imbalances. And then it can also worsen conditions like PCOS, fatigue, and weight gain. Um, it also matters to keep our estrogen and progesterone in check. So, unstable blood sugar spikes, inflammation, and stress hormones, which can lower our progesterone. And our progesterone is a hormone that is needed for calm, for our sleep, our fertility, and it can cause estrogen dominance, which symptoms are bloating, mood swings, and PMS. It also supports our thyroid function. So, blood sugar spikes trigger stress hormones again, and that can suppress our thyroid function, which can lead to sluggish metabolism, mood issues, and low energy. So, imbalanced blood sugar levels disrupt the function of various hormones. So, insulin, cortisol, estrogen, progesterone, and thyroid hormones can lead to symptoms like mood swings, fatigue, hot flashes, irregular periods, weight gain, and even more symptoms. So, what is blood sugar and how does it work? So, blood sugar is also known as blood glucose, and it actually refers to the amount of glucose, which is a type of sugar, that circulates in your bloodstream. And glucose is a vital source of energy for your cells, your tissues, and organs, and it's primarily derived from the food that we eat, especially carbohydrates. So, digestion and absorption. When we eat food that contains carbohydrates, and we think bread, pasta, or even fruit or sugary foods, your body breaks them down into glucose, which then enters your bloodstream. And now, the role of insulin is that after the glucose enters the bloodstream, our pancreas then releases a hormone um, and called insulin. And insulin helps cells in your body absorb glucose from the blood and uses it for energy. It also helps to store any excess glucose in the liver for later use. Also for energy production, cells use glucose for energy, especially the brain and muscles, which rely heavily on glucose for fuel. And if the body doesn't need immediate energy, the glucose is stored in the liver and the muscles as glycogen. Blood sugar regulations to maintain stable blood sugar levels. Your body continuously balances glucose levels using insulin to lower blood sugar and glucagon, which is another hormone from the pancreas that helps to raise blood sugar when it gets too low. So, what do we mean by blood sugar roller coaster? So, this often refers to fluctuations in our blood, in the glucose, the levels. So, high sugar intake can cause spikes followed by crashes, leading us to feel tired, irritable. And then, when we feel tired, we often actually crave for more high sugary snacks to give us that energy boost. And the cycle then repeats itself. The constant spiking and crashing creates hormonal chaos, increased cortisol, disrupted estrogen and progesterone balance. Our cravings are increased. We are more susceptible to gain weight, especially around that mid section, the mid area. We will experience mood swings and fatigue. So the question here is, how do we get off this roller coaster? How do we get off this ride? Well, there's amongst other things, we can eat a balanced meals, adding protein, fiber, and healthy fats at each meal. Educate ourselves around balanced nutrition and the benefits of each of these food groups, which I'm going to go through later. We want to be avoiding refined sugars and processed carbs and manage our portion sizes. We don't want to be going hours without eating and skipping meals, and we want to stay hydrated. If we are in a constant spike, this can lead to insulin resistance and perhaps even prediabetes or diabetes. So let's look at the key hormones that are affected by our blood sugar in a bit more detail, and just remind ourselves of the names of these hormones, and let's aim to be mindful of how we can make friends with them and not enemies. And the language that we actually use around this really does matter. So if we are constantly telling ourselves, "Oh, my hormones are all over the place. They're imbalanced," then when this is something that we constantly tell ourselves, we start to believe that they constantly are, which they may well be. But if we use more positive language around them and build a healthy relationship with them, and actually understand in more detail how they work, this will be really supportive and support our positive mindset. As after all, hormones, chaos, the imbalances, it is quite a tough journey for us women. So, insulin, cortisol, estrogen, progesterone, and thyroid. So let's look at how these hormones are affected in more detail. So we're going to start off with insulin, which you've already heard me mention a couple of times this morning, but we're going to break it down. So the insulin is the storage hormone, okay? It is the hormone that is made by our pancreas. So this hormone, it has a very important job to do because it helps us to regulate our blood sugar and store energy. And we are trying to regulate our blood sugar, right? So immediately we see a connection here. Okay. So what happens when you eat carbohydrates? And one thing I'd like you to make note of is that there are, as we know, many different types of carbohydrates, and carbohydrates are found in certain foods that you might not even be aware of. Okay. And our body digests and responds to them in different ways. So let me give you an example here. We eat a meal, okay, one that is high in sugar or refined carbohydrates. And just a quick reminder that refined carbohydrates are things like white bread, white rice, white pasta, cakes, and pastries. So this is going to cause our blood sugar levels to rise. The pancreas releases the insulin. Insulin acts like a key, unlocking those cells so the glucose can be entered into our blood and either used for immediate energy or stored in the liver, muscles, or fat cells for later use. Now, the problem here with the insulin is that constant high blood sugar equals constant insulin release. So, when you regularly consume sugary or highly processed foods, blood sugar spikes, it repeats itself. Okay, so the body keeps pumping out insulin, and over time, our cells stop responding. This is when we are insulin resistant, and this is where we do not want to be when we are trying to manage our hormones. So now I am sure that we have all heard, of insulin resistance, but perhaps we didn't have a full understanding of how easy it can be to develop it, and the impact that it does have on our hormones. So a quick rundown of the effects of chronically high insulin. So we're looking at weight gain, especially around the belly, the midsection. We're looking at fatigue, low energy, cravings, particularly for sugary foods and carbs, certain refined carbs mainly, hormonal imbalances. So insulin impacts other hormones like our estrogen, testosterone, cortisol, and increased risk of type 2 diabetes and symptoms of PCOS and metabolic syndrome. So we don't want to be in a constant sugar spike to become insulin resistant. So what helps insulin to work well? And how can we make friends with insulin? So we want to incorporate regular movement and strength training, which we're going to go into a bit more detail as well. We want to be managing our stress, and we want to be getting quality sleep, avoiding frequent snacking, and balance our meals, including protein, fiber, and healthy fats. So we next move on to cortisol. Now, cortisol is known as the stress hormone, and it is made by our adrenal glands. This hormone is there to help our body respond to stress, both physical and emotional, and it plays a key role in our blood sugar regulation. So again, I want you to be mindful that we can see there is instantly another link. Okay, so when blood sugar drops too low, how does this happen? By skipping meals, fasting too long, or eating sugary, heavy meals that cause crashes. And when we're putting that strain on our body sees this as a stress signal. And in response, it releases cortisol to bring blood sugars back up by telling the liver to release stored glucose. So low blood sugar equals cortisol spike. So frequent blood sugar dips lead to chronic cortisol elevation, which can result in anxiety, irritability, mood swings, sleep disturbances, especially waking around 2, 4 a.m. You can experience fatigue, burnout, hormone disruption. Cortisol can also suppress our thyroid, progesterone and estrogen balance, and we might crave sugar or caffeine. So what about belly fat storage? Okay, so when cortisol, okay, that we're let's say, for example, we've got someone who has belly fat around that midsection, and you've tried everything to get rid of it. All right, so much so, it's actually stressing you out. So maybe what we need to do is we need to ask ourselves, how much stress am I experiencing? What is it that's triggering my stress? And what strategies do I have in place to deal with my stress? And this is a huge, as we know, in many aspects of our life, stress is a huge factor, um, as well as impacting our hormonal imbalances. But luckily, there are many useful techniques that we can practice to reduce our cortisol levels. Um, and perhaps remember or take note or mental note that whatever it is that works for you that can balance your blood sugars, this is going to equal calmer cortisol. So when we hear cortisol, we think stress, and we want to be looking at managing our stress. So when our blood sugars are stable, your body feels safe. Okay, so it's not reacting to that stress, it doesn't feel stress. Cortisol stays at healthy levels, you feel calmer, you feel more focused, resilient, and your other hormones stay more balanced. So let's have a quick run through of stress reduction strategies. So we've got deep breathing exercises, we've got meditating, we've got engaging in regular physical activity, yoga, walking, swimming. I do advise at this stage to really get creative, listen to your body, experiment and find what works for you. If we find something we enjoy, something that works for us, we are more likely to be sustainable long term. Okay, if we're trying to do something that we don't enjoy, we're more likely to go back to our old habits. So strength training also helps with stress, improves our sleep. Let's try to create a sleep routine, managing your mindset, practicing daily gratitude, journaling, and simply being present. We can also consider some herbal supplements And always, when I mention supplements, I always also like to mention to check with healthcare providers, okay, because herbal supplements can also interfere with medications. So it's always best to check when it comes to supplements. So let's move on to estrogen and progesterone. So, to no surprise, if we have a sugar imbalance, this also can affect our monthly menstrual cycles, as estrogen and progesterone are key players in women's production, and they have a big part to play in our mood, our perimenopause, and menopause symptoms. So, let's just say that we've woken up, we've had a coffee in the morning, perhaps we had another one, and this has potentially affected our appetite, let's just say. And our hunger hormone, and we haven't eaten. It's like 2 o'clock in the afternoon. We haven't eaten anything at all, at least to raise it back up. So now we may be able to see a pattern and potentially how easy it can be to lead to chronic high cortisol levels and suppress our progesterone. Sorry, high cortisol levels can suppress progesterone, and progesterone is our calming hormone. So now we have low progesterone, and this can lead to anxiety, poor sleep, mood swings, shorter or irregular menstrual cycles, worsen PMS, and perimenopause symptoms. So remember, we discussed the insulin resistance, the high sugar, okay? When we have insulin resistance, this leads to estrogen dominance. So, which then is increased estrogen production. And this reduces the body's ability to actually detox any excess estrogen. And if we have a buildup of excess estrogen, purely for the fact that we can't detox it, this can lead to, over time, heavy, painful periods, fibroids, even bloating, breast tenderness, weight gain, especially around the hips and the thighs and the belly area. Okay, so we want hormonal harmony. Okay, we want cortisol to stay calm and strong. We want our insulin to stay sensitive, not resistant, so that our estrogen stays balanced. Your cycle becomes more predictable, your mood more stable, and your symptoms are often easier to manage. So the last hormone that we want to make friends with, as well as we do with all of them, and have a good understanding of each and every one of them, because it can be quite complicated. Your thyroid gland. So this controls your metabolism, energy, body temperature, and how your body uses nutrients. But here's the key. It should come as no surprise that thyroid health and blood sugar balance are also closely linked. So blood sugar imbalances equals cortisol spikes. So when our blood sugar drops, our cortisol stress hormone rises. Chronic cortisol suppresses thyroid hormone production. Result, sluggish metabolism. The signs, fatigue, weight gain, insulin resistance and inflammation. High sugar and insulin resistance creates chronic inflammation, which can actually damage our thyroid tissue over time. And this can be linked to an autoimmune disease that you might have heard of, like Hashimoto's thyroiditis. So when we look at low blood sugar, reduced T3 conversion. So the thyroid produces mostly T4, which must convert into active T3. And our blood sugar instability slows down this conversion to cold. So key takeaways from thyroid connection here is that stable blood sugar supports the T3, T4 conversion. Okay, when we think about the thyroid connection and the blood sugars. So how can we support our thyroids? Well, we want to be following the ethos of the 5 pillars of holistic health and focus on nutrition, mindset, stress, sleep, exercise. Okay, so now we are going to move on to the symptoms that we can experience, the symptoms that we may be experiencing of high blood sugar imbalances. So we have touched on some of this in previous slides, but it would be a real good idea to get familiar with these symptoms and to really ask yourself questions, better know your body. Okay, recognize the signs of the possible imbalances that you are experiencing. So I'm going to run through the symptoms of blood sugar imbalance, which can include either high or low blood sugar symptoms. And these can often fluctuate in people with insulin resistance or if you have a poor diet. So we've got low blood sugar, known as hypoglycemia. So experience symptoms like feeling shaky, lightheaded, irritability, mood swings, intense hunger, sugar cravings, sweating, clammy skin, headaches, brain fog, difficulty focusing, difficulty with memory, fatigue, weaknesses, and anxiety, feeling nervous, and then we're going to go on to high blood sugars. So this is hyperglycemia. So these are symptoms like frequent urination, excessive thirst, fatigue, especially after eating, blurry vision, slow healing of cuts and wounds, dry mouth, headache, and increased susceptibility to infections, especially UTIs or skin infections. So what I'd like to point out here is that we really want to get familiar with our symptoms, all right? We want to get familiar of when and how often we are experiencing them. And we can track our symptoms alongside tracking the foods that we eat, the stress we're experiencing, our sleep pattern. And then we will start to identify patterns of when we may be experiencing some of these symptoms that can be related to the balance of our blood sugar. We can use tools and resources like journals, journaling. I'm a big advocate of Fitbit watches, health watches, continuous glucose monitors known as CGMs, or even a simple checklist to spot issues early. If you do, I just want to add here, if you do consider a glucose monitor, you may want to again check with your healthcare provider, or alternatively, you might want to work with a coach. So let's move on to the benefits, the wonderful benefits of having balanced blood sugars. So what are the benefits? Again, I would encourage you guys perhaps to make a note of these or write them down, consistently write them down. Maybe put them somewhere that you can see them to remind yourself of the benefits of really working on balancing your blood sugars. This is going to create an emotional connection, okay, and help you to work towards creating that hormonal harmony that we want. So the benefits: stable energy all day, no more afternoon crashes or relying on caffeine and sugar to get us through the day. Our mood will become more balanced, fewer mood swings, irritability, anxiety, feel more calm and more emotionally stable. Improved focus and mental clarity. So say goodbye to brain fog and hello to clear thinking. Better memory and sharper focus. Reducing cravings, better sleep. Again, hormonal harmony, supporting our thyroid, our estrogen, our progesterone, and cortisol balance, especially important during perimenopause and menopause. Easier weight management, so reduces the fat storage, what we spoke about, especially the belly fat that we sometimes often can carry around that midsection, and support a healthier metabolism. We can lower inflammation, help reduce chronic inflammation, which contributes to hormonal disorders, fatigue, and disease risk. And balanced blood sugar also helps to regulate our digestion and reduce bloating. So long-term health protection. So let's now move on to how. So the benefits we've just gone through of having balanced blood sugars. How can we do this naturally? So we want to think about building balanced meals. So we want to be including 3 key nutrients in every meal. Okay, which I'm going to be breaking down each of these food groups in the next slides. So protein, healthy fats, fiber-rich carbohydrates, um, including vegetables, legumes, whole grains, and this slows down the release of the sugar into our bloodstream, keeping our levels stable. So we don't want to be skipping meals. We don't want to be going hours and hours without eating, because what happens, as we discussed, our blood sugar levels can drop drastically. Then we start to crave quick energy release foods. So we want to avoid skipping meals. It can cause, like I said, the cortisol spikes and intense sugar cravings. So we want to be moving our body daily. Okay, and this can also include gentle movement. So, gentle movement, as our muscles are contracting, even when we are walking, let's say, for example, our body uses up that glucose that's stored in our blood. So, we want to be trying to aim to walk after meals, okay, 60 to 90 minutes after. Add strength training or resistance work in 2 to 3 times a week, or even light stretching and yoga can also help to regulate our blood sugar. We want to be prioritizing sleep. So, poor sleep increases our cortisol and insulin resistance. We want to be aiming for 7 to 9 hours of good quality sleep per night for hormonal balancing. We also want to be staying hydrated. Now, being dehydrated can cause blood sugars to become more concentrated. Okay. So creating a lot more concentrated sugar in our blood, where our blood becomes thicker and stickier. So we want to be drinking plenty of water, herbal teas maybe, or mineral rich drinks. We want to be managing our stress. Okay, so chronic stress leads to high cortisol, blood sugar instability. We want to be minimizing our sugar and refined carbohydrates. And this is optional, but it's something that I am an advocate of, is tracking your responses. Okay, so as I mentioned earlier, using a food mood journal, a glucose monitor, monitoring sleep patterns, perhaps monitoring your hydration levels. So now let's look at what I like to call actually the Fantastic Four. Okay, and the reason that I've chosen to break down these 4 food groups is because that I feel it's all good and well people saying this is what you need to eat, this is what we should be eating. But what if we don't really know the full benefits of these foods? When perhaps we're not likely to be sustainable at consuming them. So we want to be introducing them into our daily nutritional habits. So number one is protein. Protein is not just for athletes. Protein is actually a key player when it comes to hormone balance, blood sugar regulation, and whole body wellness, especially for women in perimenopause or working on energy and weight balance. So let's look at the benefits of protein. So protein slows down the absorption of sugar from carbs. Okay, so that's why it's important that we often combine them together. Okay, so it slows down the absorption of the sugar from the carbs. It prevents spikes and crashes in our energy and mood. It reduces cravings and unnecessary snacking because it keeps us feeling fuller for longer, which is what we want. It helps to control our appetite and support weight management. It's also essential for our muscles and our bones, our skin, our hair. It supports recovery from stress. It supports recovery from any illnesses and workouts as well. If we're in the gym working out, we need that protein to replenish our muscles. Okay. It also requires more energy to digest protein, which helps preserve muscles as we age. Also, especially important for women over 40. Protein provides amino acids. This is another good point to remember. And amino acids are needed to produce the neurotransmitters like the serotonin and dopamine, those feel good hormones, which in turn reduces brain fog and supports mental clarity. So, hormones like insulin, estrogen, and thyroid hormones are actually all made from amino acids. So how much protein do we need? This is going to vary from person to person. It will depend. We need to be taken into consideration our gender, our age, our weight, how active you are, for example. But a good starting point is aiming for 20 to 30 grams of protein per meal, okay? And adding a source of protein every time you eat. Um, so now let's move on to fiber. Okay, fiber is a type of carbohydrate, okay, that can't be digested. It plays a powerful role in keeping our bodies balanced, especially when it comes to blood sugar, hormones, digestion, and weight. Oops, sorry. Um, so let's have a look at the benefits of fiber. So benefits of fiber, it's again, like protein, it slows blood sugar spikes because it slows the absorption of the sugar entering our bloodstream, keeping our blood glucose level stable, and it reduces the risk of insulin resistance cravings. And it also supports estrogen detox. So I'm not sure if any of you have heard of a buildup of excess estrogen that we need to remove from our body. We don't want a buildup of excess estrogen, and fiber helps to support that via the digestive tract. And it's crucial for hormonal balance, as you can imagine. We don't want an excess buildup of estrogen. Fiber also feeds our gut microbiome. Now, fiber acts as a prebiotic, feeding a healthy gut bacteria. A healthy gut, better hormone metabolism, and less inflammation. So, a quick interesting fact here that you may or may not know, that 70% of our immunity resides in our gut, and also 90% of our serotonin, which is our feel-good hormone, is also produced in our gut. 90%. So let's just say we're experiencing some signs of feeling a bit depressed. We might be anxious. It might be worth asking yourself, am I including fiber into my daily diet? Am I aware of the foods that support my gut? Okay, we've all heard of the saying, go with your gut feeling. Why is that? Because our gut is our second brain. So you can see the connection between our mental health and our gut. So fiber is uh, one of my favorites, really, really important. Fiber also keeps us feeling full and satisfied. It also improves our digestion and regular bowel movement with the hormonal waste efficiently. What about the amount to aim for each day? So we're looking at 25 to 35 grams of fiber per day from a variety of foods. So remember that fiber is our natural hormonal helper. It keeps our blood sugar stable, estrogen moving, and our guts glowing. So next we are going to move on to healthy fats hormones. Healthy fats. So why do we think that healthy fats matter for our hormonal health? So let's think of them as hormone building blocks. Okay, when we think about healthy fats. Fats are required to make sex hormones like estrogen, progesterone, and testosterone. And cholesterol, yes, the good kind, is a precursor to many vital hormones. Healthy fats also, to no surprise, balance our blood sugars. So fats slow the release of the glucose into the bloodstream, again like the protein and the fiber, slows the release of the glucose into our bloodstream, reducing spikes and crashes. And it helps to keep insulin and cortisol in check, which is what we want to be aiming for. It supports our mood and our brain health. Did you know that our brain is nearly 60% fat? Healthy fats support mood, memory, and mental clarity. They are especially key in reducing anxiety and brain fog. And healthy fats reduce inflammation. So when we think of omega-3 fats that have anti-inflammatory effects in supporting our thyroid health, period pain relief, and balance our immune response. Also supports our menstrual and menopause health. Fats help to manage those hot flashes, night sweats, and skin dryness. They support cell membranes, keeping skin and joint tissues supple. So we're going to move on to carbs. When we think about carbs, we want to be mindful of quality over quantity. Okay. Despite what we think, despite what we've been led to believe, okay, we need carbohydrates. They support our hormonal health. How? They fuel our body and our brain. They are essential for energy, mood, and focus. They support our cortisol balance. Stable carbs help to regulate stress, boosting our serotonin, okay, aiding thyroid function, balancing our blood sugars by choosing and opting for complex carbohydrates, not the refined carbohydrates that we spoke about earlier on, okay, that go straight, basically turn into sugar a lot quicker. Our bodies don't have to work that hard to digest them. Whereas when we choose the complex carbohydrates, like the whole grains and whole wheat, we've still got the fiber, so our body is slower at digesting them, and it releases that slow release of glucose, meaning a nice, slow, consistent energy throughout the day. So again, as I mentioned, we want quality carbs over quantity, and this is key. And we want to be pairing the carbs with the protein and the fat for the steady, slow release and longer energy. So I'm going to move on now to meal timing tips. So a few tips around meal timing. Remember, we said we don't want to be skipping meals, as eating every 3 to 4 hours is essential for the hormones and the energy balance to keep our sugars stable, preventing those energy crashes, supporting our cortisol rhythm, prevents us from overeating later on in the day. Skipping meals. If we skip meals and we go hours without eating, we do generally binge eat, okay, and make poor choices when putting our meals together. It also supports our metabolism, keeping our body fueled and functioning efficiently. So we want to be thinking of, like, we can't run a car with no petrol. So we want to be constantly fueling to be able to run at a nice, steady level. It balances our insulin, okay, so helps to maintain steady hormones. And consistency is key. So our body thrives on rhythm and nourishment as well, okay? Think of that consistency, our body thriving. So here again, I will recommend journal, journal, journal. Okay, look at how you're feeling. Journal how you're feeling when you don't eat for hours compared to when you are eating on a regular basis. So I'm going to have a look here at a quick morning routine reset. Okay, a simple but effective morning routine reset. Okay, something I would quickly like to share with you is we think of 1%. What do I mean by 1%? So what I mean by 1% is when we are looking at creating hormonal harmony, okay, we want to be thinking of creating small habits, which over time will become long-lasting behavior changes. Okay, and there is an expert, there's a book that I want to tell you about and recommend. It is called Atomic Habits, and the author is James Clear. I'm going to add the link for you. And he discovered that real change comes from the compound effect of 100 small decisions. Okay, so think waking up gently, hydrating first thing in the morning, moving your body, eating a protein-rich breakfast, checking in with our mindset, no phones for 30 minutes. So let's try to start by implementing the small changes, think the 1%, and implementing these routines into our day, and it will bring a sense of clarity and calm. Blood sugar levels can also have a significant impact on our sleep, and poor sleep patterns, especially over long periods of time, can really affect our glucose control in several ways, okay? So lack of sleep can make our cells less responsive to insulin. Poor sleep disrupts the balance of our hunger hormones, and sleep deprivation also increases our cortisol, which is the stress hormone. So we want to be consuming our balanced meals, stabilizing our blood sugar levels by eating those proteins and healthy fats, fibers that we spoke about. It also increases tryptophan, which is an essential amino acid, which is necessary actually for making proteins. It also promotes relaxation. A meal rich in magnesium can also help to calm and relax our nervous system. So let's look at movement for balance. So light exercise after meals can be beneficial for balancing our blood sugars and supporting our hormonal health. Gentle movement helps us to use the insulin more effectively. Activities like walking and gentle stretching. And again, as I mentioned earlier, strength training. Strength training offers huge benefits for both physical and hormonal health. Some key advantages are improved muscle mass and metabolism. So strength training helps us to build lean muscle. Okay, enhance insulin sensitivity. So building muscle improves our chances of becoming insulin resistant, making it easier for the body to regulate the blood sugar levels. It can increase our bone density. Strength training puts stress on our bones by stimulating bone growth and improving bone density, which is really important for women as we age and experience hormonal changes. It supports our hormonal balance. Strength training reduces our risk of injuries and improves our mental health and helps with better posture and balance. So what about stress and sugar cravings? If we are stressed, this can trigger the sugar cravings. It can increase our cortisol levels. When we experience stress, we don't want to be stressed. Okay, high cortisol can increase hunger and cravings for those sugary foods. It imbalances our blood sugars. Okay, so low blood sugar can prompt for those cravings. Our dopamine and reward system, so consuming sugary foods, also activate our brain's reward system by releasing dopamine. Okay, this creates temporary feelings of pleasure or relief from stress, which can then make our sugar cravings more frequent when we are under pressure or anxious. And also increases our resistance to insulin, chronic stress especially. This is why it's important that we think about how often we're stressed, okay, and what triggers our stress, what we're doing to manage it. We want to break this cycle, okay, and focus on stress management techniques. Okay, as I mentioned earlier, the deep breathing, exercise, and relaxation, eating balanced meals. So what about hydration and blood sugar? Water is often underestimated, or people are just not perhaps fully aware of the benefits of keeping hydrated to support our hormones. It plays a key role actually, especially when we are trying to balance blood sugars and the glucose. And how does this work? Water is essential for maintaining the hydration in our cells in our body, including muscle and fat cells where the glucose is transported. So proper hydration helps our cells function optimally, including absorbing and utilizing glucose more efficiently. So staying hydrated supports our insulin's ability to transport glucose from our bloodstream into our cells for energy. It also helps with our kidneys filtering out that excess glucose from our bloodstream. And proper hydration helps to flush out any excess sugar through urine, okay, preventing that buildup, which is what we want to completely avoid when we are balancing our hormones. So lots of important tips to remember with regards to water supporting our blood sugars, okay, because dehydration also mimics hunger. So we get the similar signals, okay, empty stomach sensations when you're dehydrated, your stomach can feel empty, which is a common hunger symptom. But however, it can often be a result in the stomach lining reacting to a lack of fluids rather than true hunger. Okay, so drinking water on a regular basis throughout the day can also help prevent these mixed signals and help distinguish between actual hunger and thirst. So we're nearly coming to the end of the presentation now, guys. I just want to recommend a few supplements that can also support your blood sugar. So we've got magnesium. Okay, now magnesium improves insulin sensitivity, and it helps to improve our body sensitivity, to the insulin. When insulin sensitivity is high, our cells are better able to absorb glucose from the bloodstream, leading to more stable blood sugar levels. It also can help regulate our sugar levels. Magnesium is involved in the process of converting food into energy, and it supports pancreatic functioning. Magnesium also supports proper functioning of our pancreas, which is what we need because that produces insulin. It also reduces inflammation. So low magnesium levels are often associated with increased inflammation, which also can contribute to becoming insulin resistant. And it also prevents chronic magnesium deficiency has been linked to increased risk of developing that resistance. So we can also incorporate magnesium-rich foods like leafy greens, nuts, seeds, whole grains, or consider supplements, as this can support healthy blood sugar levels and improve our insulin function. But as always, when it comes to supplements, please check with your healthcare provider if you are on any other medications. The next supplement is chromium. Chromium enhances insulin action. So the effectiveness of insulin, the hormone responsible for helping cells to absorb that glucose into our bloodstream. It also helps to prevent insulin resistance. Adequate chromium levels can help prevent the resistance in a condition where cells become less responsive to insulin, leading to high blood sugar levels. It also supports carbohydrate metabolism. So chromium plays a role in the metabolism of carbohydrates, fats, and proteins, helping the body to process glucose more efficiently, and also reduces blood sugar spikes and regulates our appetite and cravings. So how can we get more chromium from food? We want to be consuming more broccoli, garlic, oats, lean meats can also be incorporated to our diet. And the last one is cinnamon. So cinnamon extract is a concentrated form of cinnamon, often used for its potential health benefits, particularly for supporting our blood sugar regulation. Again, it improves the sensitivity, reduces post-meal blood sugar spikes, and it has properties of antioxidants and supports healthy metabolism, and also can control our appetite. So a holistic lifestyle for hormones: nourish, move, rest, and reflect. These things can support optimal hormonal health. And just some top tips here, just to briefly go over to end the presentation. We want to be eating balanced meals. We want to be reducing sugar and processed foods. We want to support a healthy gut. We want to stay hydrated, stay active and engage in regular movement and exercise to reduce and manage our stress, as well as incorporating some of the other strategies that we spoke about in managing our stress. And remember that consistency over intensity is key. Also, when we are starting out this hormonal health journey, we want to prioritize our sleep, perhaps consider creating a bedtime routine, incorporate restorative practices, practicing mindfulness, meditation, journaling, practicing gratitude. And by integrating these practices into your daily life, you will start to create a well-rounded approach that supports your hormonal health and overall well-being. So your next steps: start small, balance meals, okay, better sleep, track how you feel, and perhaps work with a coach for support. And remember the power of the tiny gains. Okay, this is a concept that focuses on making those small incremental improvements over time. Okay, think of the 1% habit that I mentioned to you. I will leave the link for the book by James Clear, Atomic Habits. So whilst each individual small change may seem insignificant, the cumulative effect of consistent tiny gains can lead to substantial transformation in the long run. Perhaps you might want to purchase a health journal to track how you feel, what you eat, how you sleep, and how often you feel stressed and what your triggers are. Dealing with our hormones is a really big task, and support them to support us. Consider working with a health coach to support you through your journey. And please do leave any comments or any feedback is also welcomed. I hope you enjoyed the presentation.
Um, Thank you, Elizabeth, for that very comprehensive presentation. Covered a lot of ground. I learned a few things as well, actually. So always useful. I think there's a couple of comments
Good.
in the chat. Yeah, somebody's just saying thanks very much. I really enjoyed the presentation. Very helpful. That's from Carol. Um,
You're welcome, Carol.
yeah, can you, if there's one kind of, you covered a lot of ground. There's a lot of points you've gone through today. If there's one kind of takeaway from this, what would it be, Elizabeth?
I think the key takeaway for this presentation is that what I'd like you to remember is that all hormones and blood sugars are very closely linked. And if one is off balance, everything is affected. So I would advise you to educate yourself, make friends with your hormones, seek support, and believe in holistic health coaching.
Right, okay, that's good. That's good. Yeah, we've had one or two comments uh, from Victoria. Victoria says an incredible presentation. Thanks so much. So thank you for your comments,
Oh, you're welcome.
Victoria.
Good.
Okay. Well, we've reached midday. Just to thank you all for showing up today. This presentation will go on our YouTube in about within the next 2 weeks. And Elizabeth is going to repeat this a bit later in the year. I think it was October, did we say, Elizabeth?
Yeah, we did. It was October.
Yeah,
I think it's
yeah.
mid-October.
Mid-October, yes. So it will be a revised version of this will be presented by Elizabeth in October. If you've got any further questions from that, and there are a number of other presentations on our YouTube channel, on Future Communities YouTube channel. We would urge you to have a look at that, and you can message us as well. There's still time to do it in the chat if you do it very quickly, or if you've got any other queries. Just to reiterate, if you've got any medical queries, we can't deal with medical issues, just like Jenny Tomei, who did the last presentation for us, said, but Elizabeth has got a network she can potentially refer you onto, but we don't deal with medical queries here as such. Okay, well, thank you everybody for attending today. And is there anything else you want to say, Elizabeth, before we finish?
Um, no, just thank you all for your comments. I'm glad that you enjoyed the presentation. And just remember to be friends with your hormones.
Right. So now there's a good tip to finish off the presentation
Yes.
with. Okay. Thank you very much. And please watch our social media for more events and presentations soon. Thank you very much.